All right, so guess what I got to do? Yes, I got to drive every single variation of the brand new 2023 GMC Canyon, the Elevation, the AT4, the Denali, and the AT4X, even the AT4X off-road. And today we're going to talk about what my first impressions are of this amazing new truck. So with that, let's get going. All right, so let's kick it off by what I thought as I was driving the Elevation, the AT4, and the Denali. And then after that, we're going to talk about what it was like to off-road the new AT4X. Amazing truck. I mean, this thing felt like a side-by-side, but we're going to get to that in a second. So with that, let's get going. But a quick rundown on these trucks. If you haven't watched any of my walkarounds, and I have a lot of walkarounds already on there and more to come, but crew cab trim only. 5-foot box only is the size of these trucks. All the trucks, with the exception of the AT4X, have a 2-inch factory lift. The AT4X has a 3-inch factory lift. Okay, that's the first and foremost. In the Elevation, you have an option for cloth and a little bit of like a Cortex kind of. It's almost like a leather, basically. All right, and you have some different variations of how you can trim that truck. We'll talk about the engine and stuff as I'm driving. You know, 11.3 inch touchscreen in all of these trucks. Programmable screen in front of the screen in front of the driver. In the Denali and in the AT4X, it's 11 inch. In the lower trim levels, or lower than those two trim levels, it's an 8-inch screen. So that's just kind of like a real quick, idea of what the truck's about, first of all. But let's jump right into what it is like to drive the Elevation. Right now, I am currently in their, I don't want to call it base because this is not a base truck, but their entry trim level, which is the Elevation. I happen to be in the sand dune, desert sand metallic, pardon me, in terms of just waving at somebody else filming one of them right now. So far, I've been driving on the road, and now I'm off-road. I'm actually on a very gravelly road, kind of in the mountainous area. I'm in North Carolina. As you can tell, I'm feeling here now. It's actually holding steady. So that's one of the things I can talk about right off the start. This is pretty washboardy right here, as I can see, and a lot of protruding sharp rocks, a lot of deep holes. Yeah, you can probably hear my voice a little bit. It's rattling, but I mean, nowhere near what it should be when I'm going down a road that's literally as aggressive as what this particular one is. So needless to say, I'm very impressed so far. Now, in terms of all of these Canyons I'll be driving today, I'll be driving the Elevation today. I'll be driving the, oh, there's a good spot I could have filmed. Darn it. Well, on the next time around, I'll be driving the Elevation, the AT4, not to mention on top of that the Denali. So those are three that I'll be trying. I'm gonna be trying on the same little trip, off-road, on-road, and so I can tell the differences between them. Again, I'm very impressed right now already with what the entry trim level is. Now again, they all have the same motor, so the motor-wise, power-wise is gonna be the same, 310 horsepower, 430 pound-feet of torque with the 2.7 liter turbo high output, but it's the suspension, the interior. By the way, so I'm sitting in right now, what is the, of course, Elevation. This has cloth interior, actually has a sunroof and sliding rear window, 11.3-inch color touchscreen and so on, but cloth interior, which I know a lot of you like because some of you don't want leather. But if you want an Elevation and you want leather, you can get that. That is an option as well. I'll be showing you another truck that actually has that. But anyways, again, very impressed with the off-road capability. Again, this is pretty treacherous terrain, and I'm easily being able to talk to you right now through this pretty beautiful country. Actually, to be honest with you, it reminds me very much of being back home in Canada. Like, I feel like I'm back in Northern Ontario, Canada right now, just with the vegetation and the hills and stuff like that. But so it's good for me because it's going to allow me to know what this truck's going to be like up in Canada as well, right? For my Canadian viewers also. But anyways, regardless of that, I want you to stay tuned. I'm going to be talking about, again, all the different trim levels, how they're riding, how they differ from one another. Again, I really like the power of this 2.7 liter high output. I've driven in the Colorado the entry trim level, the base 2.7. I've driven the 2.7 liter. They call it Plus. By the way, very likely this is going to have a name change for next year. It's probably going to be the 2.7 liter, or they're going to call it the Turbo Max. So this 2.7 liter high output is likely going to be called the Turbo Max. But regardless of that, so if you're watching this a year from now, it's probably called the Turbo Max. But regardless, 430 torque, 310 horsepower. But I'm navigating up some of these pretty steep terrains and like hardly giving any gas, and it's no problem at all. Of course, 2-wheel drive. We're not in any mud or snow or anything like that. The other thing is the handling. I really like how it's not too sensitive, but it's not too stiff either. One-hand driving is no issue, even on this, like I say, rough terrain. I'm not getting a lot of feedback to the steering wheel at all. You would think, especially with some of those jarring bumps that we're getting from these, protruding rocks. nothing like that, nothing of the sort. So far so good. I'm gonna have some walk around videos on these, so stay tuned for those also. And obviously on my Instagram, stay tuned for some short form content on these. But in the meantime, stay tuned, we're gonna talk some more. So I'm really excited to be in the GMC Canyon Denali right now. So far, great smooth drive. You know, it's running really well on these 20-inch wheels. And obviously I'm really still loving the power. Again, this is gonna have the same motor, same transmission that we just had in the Elevation, the truck I drove before this, with the 8-speed tranny, and again, the 310 horsepower, 430 pound-feet of torque. So it's gonna perform, you know, essentially the same that way. I don't think there's a whole lot of difference in weight between the two, maybe, you know, between wheels and stuff like that. This has a couple different drive modes in it as well, with the 4-low. Not a couple different, but different. But the bigger thing is, of course, is the exterior, you know, the fit and finish of the exterior, as you've seen. And then, of course, the other big thing is just the interior finish of this, with the amazing attention to detail, like the wood in this. And I'm going to show you some of that as well. But like the wood finishes, the different colors leather, the stitching in the leather. I mean, the attention to detail is fantastic. And I'm really liking the screen in front of me. Now, I know you can't see any of this, but we'll overlay it. But the screen in this one has the 11-inch programmable screen in front of the driver. I know it's not massively different from the 8, but it is. When you're driving, you can notice. Now, would I buy the Denali just because of that? No, but if I'm getting one, I do like the fact that it has a different screen. It is a bit more high-end, high-tech. The touchscreen over here is still 11.3-inch, which I think is perfect. I'm really glad to see that the base model has that as well, the entry-level Elevation. But I'm going to talk a bit more about this as I do a bit more ride. Right now, I'm still kind of on the highway part, so of course it's going to be smooth. I'm very curious to see how this is going to handle off-road with the little bit bigger wheels on it. All right, so needless to say, it has been actually hard while driving this to stay concentrating, because there is some amazingly beautiful country out here. But all that being said, what am I finding so far in terms of my feelings after driving this Denali for a little while? Now, as I may have mentioned earlier in the video, I took the Elevation out prior to the Denali. So, therefore, I'm gonna take my sunglasses off. I'm going through a tunnel here. Therefore, you would think that potentially I would notice a major difference. Here's where I'm noticing the difference. Of course, exterior looks, I mean, that goes unsaid. The Denali, you can just tell, is a more premium truck. It looks like a more premium truck, you know, different wheels, the chrome, and so on. This is kind of creepy, right? Where I'm dark like this, but don't worry, it'll get light in here in a second. But as far as the actual, you know, drive of the vehicle, I really don't notice a whole lot of difference. I mean, you know, slightly maybe in favor of the Denali, you know, and maybe a bit in the smoothness, but overall, I mean, the quietness of the cabin, which, by the way, is remarkable, especially considering, you gotta remember, this is a high output, you know, 2.7 liter 4-cylinder turbo, so it's not like it's revving at 1,000 RPM all the time. I mean, although it's not, you know, necessarily revving to the moon, but, you know, it'd be a louder engine. And I don't have the radio on. I'm talking right now, you know, to you, and you can't hear.
Arrive at your destination.
We can hear more of the radio than anything else, or the speaker, or the navigation, if I can talk correctly. But no, you know, power-wise is virtually the same. Again, I'm not noticing a whole lot of difference between these vehicles that way. But the interior fit and finish, the larger screen, the air-conditioned seats, you know, the ventilated seats, the heated steering wheel. I mean, obviously, it's one of these things where it's the creature comforts. Pardon me. It's the creature comforts.
Continue on Blue Ridge Parkway for 5 miles. By
the way, Blue Ridge Parkway, if you get a chance, is beautiful. But it's more the creature comforts, right, that are different. You know, the Bose stereo system in this. Again, as I was mentioning, the digital screen, the heated steering wheel, the memory seats, and then again, just the comfort and like the attention to detail in the inside in terms of the wood trim, the stitching in the seats, and so on. But ride-wise, again, not dramatically different between the two. Again, they both have the same, you know, 2-inch stance, probably similar suspension. So, you know, it only might have a little bit different suspension. Actually, I'm gonna write that below if there is, because I should have looked that up before I drove this. I don't remember if there's a difference between the Elevation and the Denali, mainly because today was the first day I've even seen an Elevation. So there could be a minor difference in the suspension. I am noticing a little bit smoother potentially on road. That off-road is pretty rough to begin with, so it's really hard to determine much between the two because they both rode well. But yeah, so the next truck I want to hop into is the AT4. Tomorrow I get to go in the AT4X, which I'm very excited for. That's going to be another video, so stay tuned for that. That's going to be an off-road day. But today, the next one will be the AT4, hopefully, if I have time. All right, so as I said, last but not least, we are here in the GMC Canyon AT4. I'm in the white one. Not that color matters, but it's kind of like the one I've seen at the shows is white, 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 white. The only other colors I saw is they had the deep bronze there, and then they had, what was the other color? Oh, like the desert sand. But anyways, regardless of the color, I'm in this right now. Now, one of the things you will notice in the AT4 is it's more like the, I don't want to say like, but it's has more similarities in terms of the screen to the Elevation, because in front of the driver, it's an 8-inch fully digital programmable screen. Again, like every other model, we had the 11.3-inch for the infotainment center with, of course, all the Google connectivity. Now, this truck that I am in does have the Bose stereo system, does have heated and ventilated seats, does have heated steering wheel, does have sunroof, which I'm going to leave closed purely for the lighting perspective, does have memory seats, beautiful leather. Again, not necessarily the amount of stitching that you're seeing, you know, in the Denali, but a lot of unique stitching. Of course, the black with the Kalahari leather looks really sharp. I don't know if you can see that here behind me. Looks really good. And then, you know, they got more of a carbon fiber look as opposed to a wood look, and then some AT4 badging inside. Now, all that being said, power-wise, again, similar motor, similar transmission. I didn't and don't expect a whole lot different in this truck, you know, to the Elevation and to the Denali. Now, of course, tomorrow is going to be exciting with the AT4X. It's going to be a different type of ride and a different type of truck, to an extent, different suspension. But right now, again, you know, solid ride. I'm on the smooth surface right now. Nothing is standing out, and it does have a bit more aggressive tire on it than, say, the Elevation did, for an example. So, you know, you would think, you know, again, you'd think you'd maybe have some road noise. Nope, don't have any road noise. I don't have any music on. It's working pretty well, you know, doing 45 miles an hour sort of thing, you know, within kind of the countryside city here. But no, again, very impressive. I'm just about to head up here to the off-road component. So let me do that for a little bit, and I'm gonna get back to you and see how this handles comparatively on the off-road, because I'm expecting maybe something a little different than the prior two trucks. All right, now we're on the off-road component of the trail of the drive, I guess, the off-road trail component of the drive. How about that? So clearly, I wish I could show you the picture of the sign, but I have the camera facing me instead of forward at the moment. But it just said rough road ahead, and that is no real understatement. It is definitely a bit of a rougher road, which is exactly what I wanted, because I wanted to be able to try this AT4X and see, or AT4, pardon me, to see how it actually handled comparatively to the Denali and to the Elevation. And I'm going a little bit quicker, to be honest with you, than I was in the previous two trucks, mainly because, again, this is supposed to be more of an off-road truck, off-road tires. I would suspect it's got slightly stiffer suspension and so on, and I am noticing that. So yeah, I think that, you know, if I was tossing up in the air whether I wanted to get, say, a Denali, well, first of all, if I wanted to be more in a budget, of course, Elevation is a no-brainer. You know, put some bigger tires on it, and again, it handled this road, this off-road very well. If you're not going to be going deep country off-road and with, you know, mudding, and I'm sure that truck can still do it, but there's obviously better trucks in the GMC lineup for that. Now, that being said, though, when it comes to having some luxury in the inside, of course, it's the Denali, and there is the AT4, which I'm in right now. And I guess, oh, here's some big ones here, and honestly, handle that pretty well, to be honest with you. Anyway, getting back to what I was talking about, you have the Denali, of course, and then you have this. And so, you know, I like all the trims and finishes in this. I like the leather in this. I like the fact I can still get cooled seats, heated steering wheel, head-up display, by the way. I forgot to mention that in the Denali, but of course we got the head-up display, which I'm looking at right now. But, you know, I'm somebody that wants to maybe go camping or put my four-wheeler in the back or tow a trailer and go camping, whatever it is. I do kind of like this off-road, and the sportiness look to it. So of course, to me, the Denali looks a bit more classic, right? More of a street truck with the chrome and all that kind of stuff, whereas this is a bit more sporty, which is my personal style. So I might be lending myself more personally to this truck because of that. But all that being said, from a ride perspective, I can't take anything away from the previous two trucks from the off-road perspective. All I can say is I do notice a marginal difference, you know, for the better in the AT4. And again, I am taking it a little more aggressively this time, simply because I wanted to see you know, how it handles and what kind of a difference there is or isn't, for that matter. But the point of the matter is, I do like, sorry, I had to slow down so I wasn't running people over back there. But I do like this truck in terms of how it's handling and how it can basically take on these off-road roads, but at the same token be very smooth and quiet on road as well. Needless to say, I came away after driving the first 3 trucks very impressed with his capabilities. Now, the road I was driving on was more like a camp dirt road. There was some highway driving, of course, as well. And it was a really good mix between the two. Even on the dugouts, the washouts, again, like I said, I was pretty impressed with how it handled it, without like rattling the teeth out of my head and so on. Now, the next step, the next day that I was there, we got to drive the brand new 2023 AT4X. And what I loved about the trail that we took this on, first and foremost, was the fact that, first of all, we had about an hour on the highway there, an hour on the highway back. So first of all, we could test drive and feel what it was like to drive this really off-road capable vehicle. Again, essentially like an off-road aggressive side-by-side, but on the highway. Let me tell you a couple things, first of all, that I was impressed with. They do not have active noise canceling in it in terms of the speakers, but they've taken a lot of measures after talking to the engineers in terms of the noise dampening, and it's very, very evident, because you got to remember, they're like a 33-inch tire, Goodyear Wrangler MT tire on the highway. That is normally going to give you a loud ride. Not to mention, it's a truck. It's pushing through the wind. It's not, it's not a Corvette where it's streamlined and so on. So all of these things you would think would give it a little bit of noisy ride. The co-pilot and myself, man, this thing was quiet. I was very, very impressed with the the lack of internal noise. Especially, we didn't have the radio on. We were talking to one another, and it really was impressive that way. Again, the other thing, as I was just talking with the whole rattling your teeth in your head, that is another thing I was impressed by. Is normally when you get a truck, an off-road specific truck that can really handle those whoops, it has a bit of a stiffer suspension, right? Well, due to the Multimatic DSSV suspension that the AT4X is equipped with, the dampening system changes depending on your terrain. So the cool part was when we were in the off-road, on the on-road on the highway, it was as smooth as silk. It was as smooth as butter. You would never know that you were in an off-road truck. So you could drive it to the office, drive it to the kids' hockey game, whatever it is, and you don't have to feel as though you're an off-road truck, other than it looks like one and it looks cool and it has that presence. But as far as the drive of it, man, I was really impressed. So past that, once we got to where we were, where the trails were, it was more of a kind of a high speed, if you want to call it, 40, 45 mile an hour, but off-road on gravel roads with, some little dugouts here and there, and definitely some turns, some twists and turns, elevation changes as we were in the mountains of North Carolina. And the thing would slide out well if you wanted it to. If it didn't, it was planted. You would go through this. You would go through some of these dugouts, like I did the previous day with the Elevation Denali and AT4, and it soaked it up even that much better. So what I was really impressed by the day before is I thought, hey, this eats up well. You hardly even felt it at all. And again, just like the day before, no steering feedback on the AT4X the way it was with the other 3 trucks. So that was a really good thing too. So you could drive this thing off-road aggressively out to a camp, whatever it is, and not have driver fatigue, like you would if you were in, say a side-by-side or an ATV, which I, compare it to. Again, my background is off-road racing. And so to have the ability to try this, I'm telling you firsthand how impressive I thought this was in comparison to some pretty high performance SUVs, side-by-sides and ATVs. So again, past that, then we got into some really technical areas, some really tight areas, and a huge mud puddle, which I'll show you some video of right here. So what was hard to tell by that video was the fact that it was really mucky. It was a thick, thick mud underneath that water. So it wasn't so much the impressiveness that it goes, of course, through the water. It's what it would have been sucked to underneath. Not one of the, I think it was 13 trucks we had out there, not one of them got stuck through there at all. I know this isn't the biggest model. This is what people are going to comment, that is what. It doesn't matter. This is an impressive truck that you can do things like that. You can take it technically off-road. The other thing was, I was commenting to my co-driver, we're driving through here. A half-ton truck, and certainly a three-quarter truck, ton truck is never going to fit through here. So the areas that you could actually fit this truck to was another super impressive thing. Not only what it was capable of going over, the technical areas it was capable of going over, how the suspension worked, how the torquiness worked when you're on and off the throttle. By the way, with the one-pedal drive, that is super, super impressive. Four-wheel drive, I think I only used diff lock once the whole time, and it has front and rear locking differential in the AT4X. So again, all the technical trails are on, plus going through mud like that, plus the higher end dirt roads, plus the highway. And I wasn't in one point going, I wish it had this, or it would have been better if it did this. I'm coming away very, very, very impressed with how this thing handled all the conditions. Now, again, I know this is a little bit more of an expensive truck. However, let's say you're not going and buying a $30,000 side-by-side and you're not going to go buy a full-size truck. If you want the best of both worlds, because this thing will tow too, like 7,000 pounds or whatever it is in that area, or 5,500 pounds, whatever it is. It'll tow a small boat, a trailer, an SUV, a snowmobile, whatever. An SUV, I keep saying SUV, ATV side-by-side is what I keep meaning. It'll do all that kind of stuff, but it'll take you to the office. It'll take you to the baseball game, and it'll take you off-roading if you want to go camping, if you want to have a good time. What a truck this is. Overall, I am very impressed, with the whole entire Canyon lineup. You have to get to your dealer right now because they are starting to trickle in. Not the AT4Xs just yet, but the other variations are starting to trickle in now. Get to your dealer, at least sit in one to get a feel for one. If they don't have one, I'm telling you right now, you will not be mistaken. You will not be disappointed if you order one. Until next time, thanks for watching. Take care.